Let them come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Do not hinder them. Today's gospel happens just after Jesus has crossed the Jordan River and entered Judea on the way to Jerusalem and the cross. If Francis Ford Coppola was directing this portion of Mark's gospel, I'm sure he would use music and lighting and script and all the tools at his disposal to heighten the tension. And indeed, the writer of this gospel is doing the same with the tools available to him. Crowds are gathering around Jesus, and some were holding him to the test, and they interrogate him. That's the right word. They interrogate him. Is it permissible for husbands to divorce wives? This is the very test that John the Baptist failed, resulting in his execution. So this is no random good faith, curiosity, Rabbi, tell me question. John had publicly denounced the marriage of Herodias and Antipas because Herodias had previously divorced Antipas's half-brother Philip. And so it's with malice that the crowd asks, is it permissible for husbands to divorce wives? I believe that this text is not about modern divorce. It is about equity and inclusion and fairness and community, and maybe even about love and compassion. So it might help to look at the underlying meaning of some of the words which were originally written in Greek and Hebrew. When the crowd asks whether husbands can divorce their wives, right, the word husband does not mean spouse. Rather, it refers to a man specifically. And the word for divorce means to send away, repudiate, dismiss from the house. It assumes that wives are property, and when they're undesirable, right, husbands have legal power. So when Jesus turns the question back onto the crowd and asks, what did Moses command you? First of all, he knows what their response will be. And then he speaks about how Moses knows about the human inadequacy and hardness of heart, and that requires some flexibility. But then he reaches back to a more ancient text, which came from our first reading in Genesis. The more ancient text, Genesis, in that text, the word is anthropos, meaning human being, whether male or female. So this is how it would go. From the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, this is why one person, one anthropos, one human being leaves home and cleaves to another, and the two become one flesh. It's not about a man disposing of his wife. It's about what happens when two human beings cleave to one another and become one flesh. Jesus leaves open the distinct possibility that despite all the best intentions, this holy bond might in fact break. But the point that no one who was present that day would have missed is that he changes the language. And then, immediately on the heels of that interchange comes this word, hinder. Hinder. Kolua. I don't think I said that right. Koluo. It's in the New Testament. It's a word for our human and misguided efforts to keep people away from Jesus. We've seen it happen in the past few Sundays, and we're seeing it happen now. Every time the word is used in the New Testament, that's what's going on. But Jesus says, let them come to me. Do not hinder them, says Jesus. So, if the church, any church, comes away from the first half of today's gospel thinking it has the right to hinder anyone from full communion, full access to God, Jesus, the sacraments, the joy of community for any reason,
Including.
it is misguided. And Jesus says so in the second half. Let them come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Do not hinder them. So you might be thinking right now that Jesus was talking about children exclusively, but aren't we all children of God? Let them come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Do not hinder them. And so, as the tension mounts on this journey, on the way to Jerusalem and Calvary, Jesus' mission becomes more and more clear. And we will see that in the coming weeks when Jesus says week after week, love the children, do not hinder them. Love your neighbor, do not hinder them. Love the poor and the disabled, do not hinder them. Love the bereaved. Love all those who are currently married, previously married, and never married. Do not hinder them. Let them come to me.